Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2009 Honda Accord, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver. Before we get into that though, why don't we just take a minute, check it out, and make sure it's going to work for you. Putting a trailer hitch on the back of your Accord is really going to help to open up your opportunities on what you're going to be able to do. You know, it seems like a lot of people use these for bike racks, and matter of fact, that's what our neighbor here today is going to be doing with it. And if you ask me, it beats dealing with roof rack stuff, trying to put your bike on the roof or other types of things. It's much easier, much more manageable, at least in my opinion, just to be able to plug it into the back of the hitch and hit the road. In terms of the appearance, this one is going to be visible, but honestly, it doesn't look too bad. It sits up tight against the bottom of the car, and that should really help out with ground clearance and stuff like that too, being that these do ride somewhat low to the ground. And I noticed the end of the receiver tube opening comes out just a little bit, and I feel like that's beneficial because it'll give us a little more clearance in terms of being able to use folding type accessories. This is going to be a class 1 hitch, so it has the 1¼ by 1¼ receiver tube opening, and it does have a reinforced collar for a little bit of extra strength, and I think it looks good too, as opposed to some of the other ones that don't have a collar. This just looks more finished. It is going to use the 1/2 inch size pin and clip. Keep in mind though, pin and clip doesn't come included. If you need one, not a big deal, you can grab it here at eTrailer. And something to think about too, a lot of times if you end up buying a new accessory, a lot of them come with one. So just something to think about. Safety chain openings are going to be decent size and allow us to use just about any size hook. The hitch is going to have a 200-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating. That's going to be the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. So that's good for those 1 and 2, maybe even 3 bike racks, just kind of depending on the weight of all that. As far as the maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, that's going to be 2,000 pounds. That's going to be the amount of weight pulling on the hitch, so the weight of the trailer plus anything that you might have on it. I do always like to recommend though, never a bad idea just to grab your Honda's owner's manual. That way you can check in there and make sure your Accord can handle that much weight safely. Now we can grab a couple of measurements, and these will help you figure out what type of accessories will work best. We go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, taking into account, our vehicle being on a lift. So if it were on regular ground, that would make it about 12 inches. So if it were me and you can get an accessory that has a rise in the shank, probably not a bad idea. Give you the more clearance. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of the rear bumper, that's going to be about 5 inches, and you can use that to help figure out that if any folding type accessories you might have can be stored upright without hitting the back of your Honda. Other than that though, at the end of the day, if I were to get a hitch for my Accord, it would be this one. Honestly, I think it just looks a little bit better and it'll get the job done. As far as the installation goes, this one really wasn't too bad. We'll have to trim a panel out, but everything's pretty easy to get to, and shouldn't give you a whole lot of trouble. But if you'd like to see how that's done, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and put it on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our Accord, and what we need to do is let the exhaust come down a little ways, so that way we have some room to work. So before we get to that, I like to take a strap and just run it from side to side. That way we can kind of control how fast and how far we let the exhaust come down. To get the exhaust down, we're going to have 3 rubber isolator hangers like this. And if you spray them down with soapy water, some type of lubricant, really helps make it easier. But you're just going to take a pry bar or a big screwdriver and work the hanger off. So we got that one, and then another one on this side of the muffler. Here's that other hanger. Do the same thing for that one, and then we can move more towards the center of our exhaust to get the final one. Here's the last remaining one. Once you have all of them free, we can loosen up the strap and let the exhaust come down a little ways. Now we can remove our heat shield. So there's 4 10mm head fasteners. Got 2 kind of on that flat portion, and then 2 more here on the side. Can lower this down and get it out of the way for now. Our car has this panel that runs along all the way to the other side, and it seems like every vehicle will be set up a little bit different. Some of you might have just a small panel in the middle. For those of you dual exhaust, it'll be a little different over here. You know, you would lower your muffler like we did the other side, but I think what we're going to do is remove this and kind of check everything out. If we can cut and get the panel back up, great. If not, you know, it kind of is what it is. But we're going to start. There's two 10mm head screws kind of up in these pockets here. So I grab my socket and extension and get them removed. Continuing towards the front of the car, there's going to be another 10mm screw right up here. We're going to have a few screws now that we need to take out. So one will be kind of up here. In our case, these are just regular Phillips head screws. You might have a mud flap or something back here as well, so more or less, you know, any fastener that you see holding this panel on is going to have to come out. We'll get that out, and then in our case we're going to have two more along the edge of our wheel well there. End up missing a 10mm, so in this little pocket there's a bolt up there as well. We'll pull that out, and then it looks like there's just some push pin fasteners left, which look like this. And there's a handful of them kind of just scattered throughout. So to get these, you can take a flathead screwdriver and pry underneath the head of it. And sometimes these are really caked up, so do your best not to damage them. Sometimes it's inevitable though. So if you do end up getting this panel back on and you end up damaging these, we do carry some similar to this that would work. But we'll just work our way along here and get all of them removed. Got all our push pins out, so I think, and panel's not going to come down. Found another 10mm right here. So this should be it. Should be able to lower this down and set it off to the side for now. Now we're able to get our hardware in place, and I want to mention from this point on, anything we do to one side of the vehicle, we're going to do to the other side. But this is going to be our attachment point, and you can take the fish wire, run the head of it through, and we're trying to get it to come out of this larger hole. What I like to do is just kind of put a bend in it. Makes it a little bit easier usually to drop out. But we'll feed that up through there and kind of help guide that wire out. And what you're going to do is take a spacer block, slide that over, and a carriage bolt. That'll thread onto it. And we can simply just run that hardware up into the frame rail one at a time until it drops down like that. So I think we're able to get our panel back in and the hitch installed. At least that's how it looks. What I did right here in this area is just cut a relatively large square hole in it. That way we can slide our hitch through, still be able to get to the hardware. You know, to cut this plastic, it's pretty thick. You can use a Dremel tool or a really good pair of snips or a jigsaw, something like that, whatever you got around the house. But I'm not going to completely secure the panel. I am just going to, just in case it doesn't work, I am going to put these back in because the hitch will cover these up if it does. So go ahead and get those in and work on getting our hitch up. What we're able to do now is refer to the instructions and trim out our heat shield. That way it'll clear the hitch. So I marked that out, and for this I'm just going to come in with a pair of 10 snips and get the material removed. With the help of Brad here, we're going to get the hitch into position, feed the pull wires through the corresponding holes in the hitch, and going to lift it into place, get our hardware to drop through, and once it does, you can remove the pull wire. Then on each side, you're going to take a flange nut and get it started hand tight. In the middle, we're going to have an attachment point where our tow hook comes down, so you can take the U-bolt, drop that through, and then take the correct size flange nuts and get those started as well. So now you can make sure that the hitch is centered and positioned how you want it, and then we're going to tighten down the bolts on our frame rails first with an 11/16 size socket. Then we can tighten these up with the 9/16. When you tighten up the U-bolt ones, you want to kind of, do it from one a little bit. That way it kind of draws up evenly. And then once all of our hardware is snug, we can then come back with a torque wrench and tighten it down to the amount specified in the instructions. We can simply raise that back into place and re-secure it the opposite way that we removed it. And what's left to do now is simply just raise our exhaust back into position and re-secure it. So you can usually do this by hand, and it helps if you re-lubricate the hangers to get them back in place. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2009 Honda Accord.